welcome back.
Crime novels have gripped readers for more than a century, but how accurately do the likes of Poirot or Miss Marple portray real police investigations in the criminal mind?
Well, one crime writing duo say they're trying to get as close as possible to the real thing. They're Professor Dave Barclay, a forensic scientist who's worked on high-profile cases like the Soham case and the Millie Dowler murder, and the crime writer Margaret Murphy. They penned a novel together under the pseudonym of A.D. Garrett. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Who is A.D. Garrett? Where did you get that name? What does the
We are A.D.
A.D. stand for?
We're actually keeping that a secret until our readers work it out for themselves. And there's got to be a competition on a website. So
Like,
look
a bit
out
like
for the
Endeavour Morse, then, sort of thing.
that sort of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Ah, so it's part of the mystery.
It is.
There's something quite clever about AD as well, because it could be a man or it could be a woman, and that's...
And actually, it's both.
Well, indeed, it is both. Margaret, you were writing novels anyway, crime
Yes,
novels,
yeah.
and you had a lot of experience and success in that. Why did you then decide to get together with a professor?
Well, I knew Dave from we met at the British Association Science Festival in 2008, and Dave's very entertaining as a speaker and as a performer. And then my agent saw him doing something very similar at the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to get you two together because I'm science trained and I love science." And we had a chat and we decided that we could actually work together. And it came out of that, really.
Dave, what do most crime writers get wrong that is not realistic?
They can get almost anything wrong because the secret of forensic science is the context. If you get exactly the same scientific results but a slight difference in context, it makes it nonsense and you can't draw the conclusion that you draw.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, you could get a body being dragged out of a lake and the body is dragged out over rocks because you've had rocks there before, but the scratches would have to match the rocks. If the body is dragged out over pebbles, it would sort of roll over the pebbles and you get to completely different marks. So the fact that you've mentioned rocks in the lake earlier completely alters the context that later on when you're doing the post-mortem.
Does this rather stymie the creative process occasionally? You find you want to write something and then Dave comes and says, oh, you can't say that.
Well, he has on several occasions, but I don't think it stymies it because that conflict is really useful. I mean, there was an occasion where I really needed, like they do on TV series, I really needed the DNA results today.
Yes.
And I got back today, I said, look, it's not going to work in terms of story unless I can get these results today. What can I do? He said, well, you could get them in a few hours if you want to. Which I didn't know. So Dave kind of filled in the gaps for me.
And you know so much about the business that you know that there would be shortcuts, which would mean that somebody could get hold of something like that.
Or ways around it. It doesn't so much stymie to stimulate it because Margaret will have a thing that needs to happen for the plot, and I can maybe suggest 2 or 3 different ways we could accomplish that result.
Yeah, well, but there must have been, Margaret, and I know you're being very cooperative and talking so positively now, but there must have been moments when you said, no, I really need this to happen, and I know maybe in real life it wouldn't have happened, but it's so obscure a detail that actually, does it matter if it's not 100% accurate?
Well, I feel quite as passionate as Dave does about getting the science right. But there was an example where we were at complete loggerheads. And I remember Dave saying to me, that's daft. He couldn't possibly do that. He must know. There's a minor character who is rather secretive. And he didn't want his DNA to be taken. He didn't, actually, he's quite nervous of the police as well. And Dave said, well, he's going to have his DNA taken at every crime scene. He's just got to get over that. And I couldn't get over the fact that I needed this for story. And then I thought, well, actually, I can use this as a conflict between them. And that isn't quite resolved yet. They're still at loggerheads about it. And it kind of, it feeds into the storyline of that character as well.
In the book, it's a duo as well. So here you are, somebody who knows a lot about crime writing with a forensics expert. In the book, it's Detective Inspector Kate Sims, who knows all about crime, alongside Nick Fenimore, who's a professor.
Who works at Robert Gordon University.
How very strange. So are you...
Are you asking about
mirrored?
parallels?
Are the characters mirrored?
Well, Kate Sims is a lot braver and cleverer than I am. I don't know, Dave, do you identify with Fenimore?
I identify with Fenimore, but he's a lot more restrained than I am. I tend to be slightly eccentric in the way I think and rude. I tend to make double entendres and say, as the bishop said to the actress a lot, even to my students. And
He said he was going to get that in, and he's got it in.
that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but you've read what Margaret has written, obviously, and she presumably has based this character on you. So are there things where you've thought...
No, I think it went the other way round. We created the characters together.
Okay.
And then bits are written, and then maybe I will write a little briefing note for Margaret as to how to get over one particular thing.
So how does this process work? You're not in the same room, presumably. You write something and then you email it and then you send back notes, or...?
We outline in detail first. So Dave actually started with a 10-point plot. And from that, we started talking about characters, about interactions, about the kind of investigation that would go on. I went away and wrote a brief outline, and then Dave filled in with briefing notes. And it kind of grew. It's very organic. And even now, even actually at the rewrite stage of the second novel, we are still talking about detail, and we're still kind of making compromises in a sense.
All right. Of all the TV detectives that there are out there, I'm wondering which gets your, if any of them get your seal of approval. Who's the most realistic? Got to be Midsummer Murders, hasn't it?
No. It's got to be Morse.
Morse.
Morse is, because he's erudite as well. There's a lot of backstory with Morse, isn't there? So it's a rounded character. But the books themselves are much more plain and simple. If you read the books by Dexter, they're actually quite simple. The Morse is one of the things that's been adapted really, really well for television.
But you
Unlike
like the
CSI. Sorry to talk over you.
CSI.
Well, I was going to say,
Yes.
you like the character of Inspector Morse, but what about the science in the programmes?
But it's more solving problems, isn't it? So the science is not enormous part of the Morse series.
Yeah, it's more an intellectual exercise,
Yes.
I think, the Morse.
Yeah, and the less you can do with the science, the better on TV.
A.D. Garrett's come up with there's some pretty gritty stuff actually in it, isn't there? I mean,
Yes,
the
Susanna was saying she found some of it
the opening
difficult.
sequence is about shooting up heroin and sort of step by step and what you do and how it feels. Why does it's a silly question really, but why does crime writing have to be so grimly realistic?
It's a lot less grim than real life. Remember, my background is investigating actual murders, or helping to investigate actual murders, and they're horrendous. And the things people do quite casually to other people are really
So actually, we're not
distressing.
getting the real deal when
No, you are not. I mean, you've got a realistic book, but the graphic detail is not there. If you see post-mortem pictures and you see how afterwards people will pretend that they haven't done something. I just hit her. No, you didn't. You hit her 47 times with a brick. You know, that's real life.
Okay.
And sensitive to handle as well, isn't it, Margaret? I mean, I find it difficult to read. You've got to write it.
But I think if you went back and looked at the sections where there is a description of a body, for example, a lot is actually left to the reader's imagination.
Okay.
All right.
Good to talk to you. Thank you both very much indeed.
Everyone Lies by A.D. Garrett, Margaret and David's pseudonym, is out tomorrow.
That is all from Breakfast for today.